it's not all brand new, but what is new is when you start dealing with as many complicated areas as we're dealing with, any of them, there's got to be a pace. You got to get used to saying, okay, we're there. There is no there in these bills. We are moving very quickly, very, very quickly. We only got notice of the special session, what, a few days, well, a couple of weeks or whatever. We were all focused on a budget session. We were ready to go on budget. We were well down the road on the budget. Our tri-chairs, all the subcommittee of Ways and Means, we were well down the road. And all of a sudden, we're not going to do that. We're going to just a policy session. And the number one policies involve the whole crisis around discrimination, around hate, around police. And that like, wow. So when you have that kind of situation, instead of one bill, there's 6 bills there alone. Every one of those areas is critical to get right. And then you have all these other issues that you're trying to deal with. Whether you've looked at them before or not, there's a whole different atmosphere now. Plus, we struggle as much on should we close the Capitol or not. We talked about that as many times as we talked about all the bills. Should we require a mask? Will the press be allowed in the building? I got to tell you that. So we had to spend more time on those kind of things and those distractions. And they're not distractions, but they're critically important. I mean, I sit right here now in the Capitol and I'm scared to death. Despite the fact that we brought in an expert team of infectious disease people from Oregon Health Science University who went all over the building and they told us this, that, and the other thing. The fact is that you cannot look at these things, these bills, or any one of these bills in a vacuum. There's another whole overlay. Your state is in crisis. There's major disruptions everywhere. And we got to do something. You got a disease that shut down our economy. It's killing people everywhere. We can't get control of it. You got your economy is in the tank. In 24 hours, the economy went in the tank. I don't think I'm exaggerating this. So any bills in front of me is not just that bill. I'm thinking about all kinds of other things. So I think, I wish there were a lot fewer bills that we were dealing with. We had more time, but we don't. So I don't really care. This is the cards have been dealt. Shut up, Peter. Do the best you can. That's the name of the game. Let's get moving. I said to the Senate today, this is our time. This is our time. It is our time. So that's how I look at it. So I can't give you any more answer than that.
So I think from my perspective, of the number of bills that we have, and I would agree that there were a lot of things we had to deal with in addition to the bills, in addition to the timeline. This has been incredibly complicated and difficult to put together. However, I think there's about 3 sets of bills. One is, if you remember, there was a joint committee on coronavirus response that Peter and I called back in March, right after the pandemic began. They did some tremendous work, came up with a list of things that needed to be changed statutorily, things that the governor couldn't do by executive order, things that like the courts and local government, and some very technical things that our statutes were just not prepared for, the type of shutdown that came with the pandemic. So that group of bills, while they had some work a couple months ago, they kind of just sat on the shelf until the session was called. And so they got resurrected. None of those topics are necessarily new, but we're scrambling to get them right, making sure, for example, the eviction moratorium and foreclosure protections have the right adjustments. Stakeholders have been meeting, legislators have been meeting, so I think they're going to be ready to go. Then you have the police reform bills that, other than the arbitration bill that died in the 2020 session because everything else died when Republicans left the building, that is the one bill that was completely ready to go. However, from the perspective of the People of Color Caucus here in the legislature, that one bill is not sufficient in this moment in time. So we feel like the things that are on the table as it relates to police reform, some aspect of them are doable in a way that can be vetted appropriately. We had testimony yesterday. We're getting feedback. We think we can write those in a way that will move us forward, but they are only the first conversation on this. And then lastly, you have some bills that went through an entire process in the 2020 session or the 2019 session that really are just updates and ready to go. And the driver's license suspension issue is a perfectly good idea, in that we want to make sure that people can get back to work and not, continue to pay their fines, but not have their license suspended. In an economic recession, super important right now. So those are the 3 categories of bills that we have. And so It's the things that are a little newer, like police reform, that we're waiting on amendments. But we're really anxious to get started, and the committee is going to meet at 10 o'clock and take up some bills already.